Okay, so when you're multiplying polynomials, which is what we're going to do today, we're going to multiply the numbers together. Okay, so anytime there's a number times a number, okay, we're going to multiply those like usual. And then we're going to use the properties of exponents to multiply the variables. So let's remind ourselves on how to do that. Remember, variables are just letters. Okay, so when you're using the properties of exponents there, that would be like this. Okay, we're going to do a little example. So what we were doing earlier is x to the 5th times x squared. So if you just multiply x to the 5th times x squared, do you guys remember what you have to do with the exponents? When you multiply and they have the same base? That's right. You have to add them together. Okay, so when you multiply with the same base, you are going to add the exponents. Okay, so when you multiply with the same base, you are going to add the exponents together. Okay, so we're going to use that rule for part A. So it says to multiply. Remember, there are different ways that they'll show you to multiply. So one way is to have those parentheses there. Okay, so we're going to multiply the numbers together. So we're going to multiply 6 times 3. Do you guys know what 6 times 3 is? 18 is right. Okay, and then when you multiply, you're multiplying y to the 3rd times y to the 5th. And that's going to be y to what power? 8. Okay, so you're just going to put that right next to it. Okay, so 18y to the 8th, that's your final answer. Okay, so you're going to add those exponents together. Okay, now sometimes you're going to have multiple variables. Okay, so you're going to have more than one letter. So we're going to start the same way, where you're going to multiply a number by a number. So we're going to multiply 3 times 9. Okay, so what's that going to be? What's 3 times 9? What do you guys get? Yeah, calculator. 27, great. Okay, and then you are only going to multiply them together if they're the same number. Okay, so with the m's, you have an m and then you have m squared. So m times m squared. Okay, Erica, can you tell me what that's going to be? M to what power? Yeah? Good. So remember, if you don't see the exponent, it is a 1. Okay, so it's m to the 3rd. Okay, and then here we have n squared times n. And do you guys see that this is really the same thing? It's just in a different order. You have squared and then 1. So again, you're going to have the power of 3. All right, and then you just write this all as one thing, 27 m cubed n cubed. And then when you're writing your final answer, okay, you're going to write them in alphabetical order. Okay, so that's why the m comes first. All right, now even if there's 3 of them, you're still just going to multiply all those together. All right, so I'm going to give you a minute to do this. So you're going to multiply the 2, the 5, and the 2, and then you're going to go through and then do the letters. Alright, and then Avery, what'd you get for the numbers when you multiplied all those together? Good. Okay, and then I would just go in order, like I would do the r's next. Okay, now the only r you have is r squared, so that's just going to stay r squared. Okay, and then the t's, you have t and t to the third. Okay, so if I multiply t times t to the third, okay, Bree, how many t's am I going to have altogether? Sorry, say it again. Yep, good. Okay, and then the last one is going to be the s, and there's nothing to multiply that by, so it's s to the fourth. So if I'm going to keep this in alphabetical order, like if I wrote it like this first, okay, I'm going to rewrite it. So it goes RST, so r squared s t. So alphabetical order, alphabetical order. Okay, so that's how you multiply monomials together. Okay, and now we're going to multiply a number by a polynomial, and in order to do that, we're going to use the distributive property. Okay, so when you distribute, you are going to multiply everything by 4, here, here, and here. Okay? So you're going to multiply 4 times 3. Okay, what's 4 times 3? 12, so it's 12x squared. The next one would be 4 times 4, which is 16. Good. And then the last one is 4 times negative 8. So this is going to be a negative value. What's 8 times 4? 32. Good. Okay? So then this is going to be your final answer. You guys remember from last week what type of polynomial this is? It's a trinomial. And what type of trinomial is it? Yeah, quadratic. Great. Okay. So when you have a number, all you have to do is multiply those numbers together. But sometimes you're going to have a number times a number with variables times variables. Okay? So when you're doing this, you have to multiply everything by 2p and everything by negative q. Sometimes it's easier to keep track if you write out 6pq times 2p. Find that, and then do 6pq times negative q, and combine those together. Okay, so then when you multiply, you're going to do 6 times 2, which is 12. And then you have to multiply the p by the p. So if this is p and this is p, if you multiply them, you get p squared. Because 1 plus 1 would be 2. P times p is p squared. There's nothing to multiply the q by, so you're just going to leave that as q. And then anytime you have a negative, it's like you have a negative 1 in front. So 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. Nothing to multiply the p by, so that's just going to be p. Okay, and then q times q is going to be q squared. So then your final answer is just these two together. 12 p squared q minus 6 pq squared. Okay, so based on that, I'm going to have you guys do this one. And again, we're going to write it out as 3ab squared times 5a squared. We're going to find that. And then we're going to multiply that by negative b. Okay, so I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, let's see how we did. So 3 times 5 is 15. A times a squared is a cubed. And then you have b squared. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. There's nothing to multiply the a by, so it stays a. B squared times b is b cubed. So then we're just going to write them together. Okay, and both times this one was a negative, so we put a minus, but if it was a positive, we would put a plus in between. Okay, this is your final answer. So you have a negative, so you put a minus. Okay, if the second one is ever not negative, if it's a plus, okay, then you would just keep the positive there. All right, questions for me on those? All right, then the last thing we're going to do is multiply a binomial by a trinomial. Okay, so when you multiply a binomial by a trinomial, we're going to do something similar to what we did before. So you actually have to distribute twice. You have to distribute x to everything. So when you do that, you're multiplying x by x squared by 4x and negative 6. So that's what we're going to do first. So what's x times x squared? X to the third, great. Okay, and the reason why that is, when you're doing x times x squared, you're doing x times x times x. Okay, so there's 3 of them being multiplied. And then you're going to do x times 4x. So if there's no other number there, you're multiplying by 1, so it's going to stay 4. X times x is x to the second. And x times negative 6, you just write as negative 6x. Okay, that's the first step. The next step is distributing the negative 5 to everything. So when you multiply everything by negative 5, I'm going to show you how to line this up so that you can add the like terms straight down. Okay, so get that written down with me and then we'll do the next part together. I just don't want to go too fast. Okay, so now your next step is negative 5 times x squared. That's going to be negative 5x squared. So I'm going to line it up underneath the other x squared. Okay, so write that part down with me. I'm lining them up to make our last step easier. Okay, and then negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. And then because there's an x, I'm going to keep that here. And then negative 5 times negative 6, I have a negative times a negative, so I know it's going to be a positive. That's also something you can check on your calculator. A negative 5 times a negative 6 is a positive 30. Okay, and then we have to combine like terms. Okay, so this is actually what you guys did last week when you had to add straight down. So when you combine the like terms, x cubed, there's only one x cubed. When you're combining like terms, you just have to add or subtract. So this is 4 minus 5. What's 4 minus 5? Negative 1. So when you have negative 1, you can just make this a negative x squared. So when you're adding or subtracting, these are going to stay the same. If you're down 6 and you subtract 20 more, it's a total loss of 26. You keep the x with it, and then nothing to combine the 30 with. Okay, so this is your final answer. Okay, I like to line these up so that that makes it a little bit easier, but you could also like write these out and then underline the like terms. That would be another way that you could do that. Okay? All right, and then, so on the back, I'm going to have you guys do your practice. And some of these, like 12, 13, 14, you'll probably need more room for those, so you can kind of spread that out there, okay? And then just box in your answer for each one.